My ex-wife took half my business. This is how I rebuilt my life and left her with nothing. You'll be bankrupt within a year. She laughed at the settlement. I smiled and nodded. 6 months later, her lawyer was frantically calling because... Original post. I, 38M, built a small custom furniture business from nothing but sawdust and stubborn determination. Started in my garage 12 years ago, after learning from my grandfather. Met Diana, 36F, at a local market where I was selling my pieces. She was smart, ambitious, and had a background in marketing. When we married 8 years ago, I thought we were perfect together. The first 5 years were good. Diana helped transform my solo operation into an actual business. Website, social media, professional branding. My custom furniture shop became known locally for quality pieces. We opened a small showroom, hired 2 craftsmen, and were finally making actual profit. Not rich, but comfortable. I handled design and building, she handled business operations. I trusted her completely. Then came the changes, subtle at first. Diana started complaining about working in this tiny showroom and being wasted in this small pond. She began comparing our income to her college friends who worked corporate jobs. Then came the passive-aggressive comments about how her marketing skills could earn 6 figures easily if she wasn't stuck supporting my little hobby. I worked 60-plus hour weeks trying to grow faster, taking custom orders that stressed me out just to increase our profit margins. Nothing was enough. The woman who once loved my passion now called it making fancy chairs and tables. The final straw came when I found out she'd been hiding money in a separate account. Not illegal since we lived in a community property state, but definitely shady when I found out it was nearly $17,000. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. Insurance, she called it. Insurance against what? Against your business eventually failing. She said, looking at me like I was naive. Everyone knows small businesses like yours don't last. That night, I slept in my workshop. 2 days later, she told me she wanted a divorce. No conversation about fixing things, no suggestion of counseling, just done. Said she'd outgrown me in the business. I was blindsided, heartbroken, and then came the real kicker. Since she'd been working in the business for years, her lawyer argued she was entitled to half. Not just half our personal assets, half my business. The settlement negotiations were brutal. Her lawyer, this shark named Wesley Price, presented spreadsheets showing how Diana's marketing efforts had transformed my hobby into a viable commercial enterprise. The fact that I'd been building furniture for years before meeting her seemed irrelevant. The judge seemed sympathetic to her arguments. When the settlement terms came down, I felt sick. She got the house, half my personal savings, and 50% ownership of my furniture business. The final blow came when we met to sign paperwork. Diana looked at me with this smug smile and said, "You'll be bankrupt within a year without me. Nobody wants handmade furniture anymore." Her lawyer actually chuckled. I just smiled and nodded, let them think what they wanted. What Diana forgot was that while she knew marketing, I knew making, and I knew my customers, not as data points, but as actual people. People who'd commission pieces for weddings, anniversaries, births, people who didn't want mass-produced garbage. The day after signing, I withdrew my share of money from our business account. I consulted with my lawyer first to ensure I was only taking what was legally mine as 50% owner. I called the 2 craftsmen I'd trained, Crin and Dom, explained the situation, and made them an offer. Then I called our landlord about the showroom lease. Diana texted me furiously that evening. "What happened to the business account? Where's the inventory?" I didn't reply. Let her wonder. The next morning, I filed LLC paperwork for a new business, naming it after my grandfather, who taught me. Set up shop in a smaller space across town. Costs were lower, and I'd applied for a small business loan using my personal tools as collateral. The genius part? Our old business still existed on paper. Diana still earned 50% of it. But the showroom was now empty, the employees gone, the website dormant. She owned half of nothing. Within a week, I'd personally called every client with outstanding orders, explaining I'd had a change in business structure, but would honor all commitments through my new venture. Not a single client cancelled. Most actually expressed support when I vaguely mentioned divorce complications. I'd been working my arse off for 6 months, 15-hour days, 7 days a week, My new workshop is smaller than our old business was, but the overhead is lower and I'm in complete control. Quinn and Dom came with me, accepting slightly lower pay temporarily, with satisfaction. The promise of profit sharing once we're stable. They've been amazing. Yesterday, Price called me. Apparently, Diana is furious that her investment in our old business is worthless. She's demanding I return the business assets and threatening legal action. I had my new lawyer, much more affordable, works with small businesses specifically, explain that I hadn't violated the settlement. The old business still exists. She owns 50% of that empty shell. Nothing in our agreement prevented me from starting a new business or required me to remain employed by our joint company. Price sounded desperate on the phone. Turns out Diana had been counting on income from the business. She'd leveraged herself with a new car and expensive apartment lease, anticipating regular profit distributions that weren't coming. The best part? Some of our old customers have been contacting her, asking about furniture orders. She's been referring them to me because she has no choice. I don't want revenge. I just want to build beautiful things and make a living. But I won't deny feeling some satisfaction knowing that the business she dismissed as a hobby is thriving without her, while her insurance money is probably running out. The shop smells like sawdust and possibility. Yesterday I delivered a walnut dining table to a young couple who saved for a year to afford it. Their faces when they saw it made everything worth it. I'm rebuilding piece by piece, just like my furniture. Update 1, 2 months later. Holy shit, wasn't expecting my post to blow up like this. Thanks for all the support and advice. Lots has happened since I last posted. First off, Diana didn't stop with the phone calls. After her lawyer's unsuccessful attempt to intimidate me, she showed up at my new workshop unannounced. Caught me in the middle of applying finish to a credenza. Thankfully, I didn't mess up the coat when she startled me. She looked different. Designer clothes as always, but the confident smirk was gone. Instead, she looked stressed and, honestly, kind of desperate. She started with small talk, commenting on the new space, then quickly pivoted to, "We should talk about the business situation." I just kept working while she talked. She actually proposed we team up again because we were such a good business match. Said she'd made a mistake letting emotions drive business decisions. I almost laughed. This wasn't about missing me. Her sleek handbag was looking pretty worn, and I noticed her luxury watch was gone. When I didn't immediately jump at her offer, she switched tactics, started pointing out all the marketing mistakes I was making with my new business. My website was amateur, designed by Quinn's college-age kid who's studying web design. Not fancy, but functional. My social media presence was inconsistent because I post when I have time between, actually building furniture. My pricing structure made no sense. It's based on materials, time, and what local clients can afford, not maximum profit. "You need me," she insisted. "This place could be making 3 times the revenue with proper marketing." I finally put down my tools and looked her in the eye. "Diana, I'm bringing home more now than I did when we were married. Lower revenue, way lower expenses, higher profit." Her face did this weird twitch thing. "That's impossible. Your showroom is half the size. Rent is 1/3 of what we were paying. No expensive displays, no fancy lighting system you insisted on, no cappuccino machine for clients who rarely used it. Just a workshop where people can see their furniture being made." She didn't like that. Started getting louder, said I was being small-minded and limiting my potential. That's when Dom walked in with lunch for the crew and stopped cold seeing Diana. He's always been quiet, but surprisingly gave me a look like need help. I shook my head slightly and he backed out. Diana noticed the exchange, and something seemed to click. "They all came with you," she said flatly. "Quinn and Dominic." "Yep." "And the clients?" "Most of them." She got quiet then, looking around the workshop at the half-finished pieces. Orders we were working on, evidence the business was functioning fine without her. "You planned this," she finally said. I shrugged. "I adapted," like small businesses do. She left shortly after, but not before saying this was far from over. Classic Diana, always needing the last word. 3 days later, I received a formal letter from Price, demanding detailed financial records from my new business, claiming Diana was entitled to information as it represented derivative profits from her partial ownership of our old company. My lawyer sent back a beautifully worded letter that essentially translated to, "Nice try, but nope. Separate business entity, legally distinct, no obligation to share financial details." What Diana doesn't know is that last month was our best month yet. Word of mouth is bringing in steady orders, and I've started collaborating with a local metalworker on some mixed media pieces that are getting attention from a boutique hotel developer. Nothing huge, but sustainable. The kind of slow, steady growth she always dismissed. The biggest surprise came last week. I got a call from Brandon Teller, who owns that high-end furniture showroom downtown that Diana always tried to get our pieces into. They cater to the luxury market, all imported Italian stuff with ridiculous markups. Diana had apparently been pestering him about carrying some of her pieces, presenting herself as still being part of the business. He saw through it, got curious, looked me up, and wants to feature some of my work. Commission basis, but excellent exposure. The irony isn't lost on me. Meanwhile, through mutual friends, I've heard Diana had to take a marketing job at a local company. Decent salary, but nowhere near what she thought she'd be making from her half of the business. She's been complaining to anyone who'll listen about how I sabotaged her. I'm just focused on building, one piece at a time. The business is growing, slower than it might have with aggressive marketing, but sustainably. No debt, except the small business loan, which I'm ahead on payments for. Sometimes I catch myself missing what we had in the beginning, before money and status became her obsession. Then I remember how peaceful the workshop is without constant pressure to scale up or maximize revenue streams. Next week I'm delivering a rocking chair to an expectant mother who wants to nurse her baby and something her kid might inherit someday. That's the kind of thing that matters to me. I'll update if anything major happens, but honestly, I'm hoping things just quiet down and I can focus on sawdust and joinery instead of lawyers and drama. Update 2. 4 months after initial post. It's been 6 months since the divorce finalized, and what a ride it's been. I haven't posted because I've been ridiculously busy, but some major developments happened that I need to get off my chest. First, remember that boutique hotel project I mentioned? It turned into something bigger than expected. The developer loved our first few pieces and commissioned furnishings for their entire lobby and restaurant area. Largest single order I've ever handled. Had to temporarily bring on 2 more woodworkers just to meet the deadline. The installation was featured in a regional design magazine, which led to more commercial inquiries. Not all panned out, but enough that I've had to make some decisions about scaling. But on my terms this time. Focused on quality and craftsmanship, not just revenue. About 3 months ago, I got served with actual lawsuit papers. Diana was suing me for fraudulent dissipation of marital business assets and intentional economic interference, basically claiming I deliberately tanked our old company to deprive her of value. My lawyer wasn't concerned. The suit was more desperate than dangerous. Diana would have to prove I took actions specifically to devalue our old business rather than simply starting a new, separate business. Still, dealing with it meant time away from the workshop, which pissed me off. The turning point came during depositions. Diana's lawyer had me walk through the timeline of establishing my new business, trying to build a case that I'd planned this all along. I answered honestly. I hadn't planned anything until she made it clear the business meant nothing to her beyond its monetary value. Then they called Quinn as a witness, expecting him to say I'd lured him away. Instead, he calmly explained he left because, in his words, Diana treated skilled craftsmen like factory workers. Described how she'd tried to implement efficiency standards that compromised quality, and talked about outsourcing production to increase margins. I followed him because he respects the work, he said simply. Laughable. $85,000 for half a business that exists only on paper. My counteroffer. $2,500. Fair market value for a company with no assets, no employees, no inventory, and no active clients. This morning, I received signed papers accepting my offer. Just like that, it's over. I now own 100% of my original business again, though I'll be continuing with my new company. The new name feels right. The unexpected epilogue came this afternoon. I was at the bank finalizing a business account adjustment when I ran into Jeremy, Diana's older brother. We were never close, but he was always decent to me. He hesitated, then walked over. Heard about the lawsuit ending, he said awkwardly. I nodded, not sure what else to say. Look, for what it's worth, he continued, this pattern isn't new. When we were kids, Diana would always decide she deserved a bigger piece of whatever was successful. Did it with our parents' attention, did it with credit for school projects. I wasn't sure why he was telling me this, but he seemed to need to say it. She's moving to Chicago next month, he added. Got offered some marketing director position, telling everyone it's a huge step up. But, he trailed off. But she needs to escape the local reputation, I finished for him. He nodded. Anyway, saw your hotel installation. Really beautiful work, man. That simple compliment from her brother somehow felt like the period at the end of a very long sentence. So here I am, 6 months after thinking my business and life were shattered. My new business is doing better than our old one ever did. Not necessarily in raw revenue, but in stability and satisfaction. I'm more careful now about how I grow, focusing on what matters to me rather than arbitrary benchmarks. I've got 4 full-time employees now, including Quinn and Dom, who stuck with me through the worst of it. The workshop is loud with the sounds of saws and sanders and people who actually care about what they create. Last week, I had dinner with Quinn's family, including his son, who designed our website. The kid's starting a small business, designing sites for local companies. Asked me for advice about business structures and protecting himself legally. Felt strange being on the other side of that conversation. But good to pass on what I've learned the hard way. Diana's "you'll be bankrupt within a year" prediction couldn't have been more wrong. The business is thriving, and more importantly, I am too. There's something powerful about rebuilding on your own terms. As for me personally, still single, still figuring that part out, but the workshop smells like sawdust and possibility. And right now, that's more than enough.